We are back as the show gets a new opener, I get a new poster, and the survivors face new challenges as they look to survive long-term in the new world, as the vestiges of the old crumble away. It's Rick Grimes' final episodes, with the season premiere of The Walking Dead. Season 9, Episode 1. A New Beginning. Hey everyone, D here, and welcome back to the return of The Walking Dead. So excited for this season. And yes, it's also kind of a little bit of a heartbreaking beginning as well. I mean, first off, we knew that this is going to be the final season for Rick Grimes. He is set up for, Andrew Lincoln has agreed for 6 more episodes, I believe, which means that sometime in the first half of this season, Rick's going bye-bye. We don't know how he's going to go out, if he's going to ride off into the sunset or get taken out. I'm assuming probably more of the latter. But we also have some very sad news that happened over this weekend. And of course, I am talking about the passing of Scott Wilson, a.k.a. Hershel, who was just a phenomenal presence on the show. And yes, Hershel did pass on several seasons ago. But Scott Wilson has always been a very integral part with talking about the show, supporting it. Just a fabulous actor, a great presence. So very sad to be kind of kicking off this season knowing that this man has passed on. There were some discussions, some announcements, I believe, being made about him possibly showing up this season. I don't know if they shot any episodes with him. I don't think so. I think it was just in discussion. And obviously those would have been flashbacks, but no, we will not get to that. So yes, we know we're walking into this knowing it's the end of Rick Grimes, but very sad to hear about the passing of Scott Wilson. He was a phenomenal presence, and we're going to miss him, even though, like I said, Hershel has been gone from us for some time. But let's get into the episode itself. And yes, standard spoiler warning, we're going to be diving into a bunch of stuff today. It's kind of an interesting episode, really. I thought it was good overall. We're setting up, again, this new world. We have a time jump. It's been about 18 months since the end of Season 8, since the fall of the Saviors. And in those 18 months, really, these communities have faced some large changes. And we really see that in the opening sequence. One, we have all of the horses, everybody on horseback for the most part. Daryl still has his bike, but it's a trimmed down bike, not his big Harley. This is riding off of ethanol, off of corn. So still a little bit of fuel left, but outside of that, most of your vehicles are all gone. We are down to riding on horses. We have moved much more into an agrarian society, much more crops. Really seeing the long-term establishment of really surviving into the future. And this is kind of something that I've been looking forward to see for some time. I think many of us have. One of the frustrations with the show is seeing how many cars have been driving around, the use of gasoline, the finding of guns and bullets and those type of ammunition that these vestiges of the old world have really been hanging on a lot longer than I think that they should have. So I really appreciate the fact that the show has really made that big step forward, that we aren't seeing the vehicles moving in the same way. We're seeing, again, a lot more hand weapons, spears, all of our standard close quarter combats, now much more of the norm. We're not really seeing weapons and stuff like that. So we're seeing the way the world should be moving with this, the falling away of the old world. And we're also, again, seeing the real crumbling of that world. Primarily, one of the issues we run in with this episode is, of course, the crumbling bridges being damaged by storms and time. We, of course, see the buildings all starting to fall apart. So it's really getting some nice transition elements there. I like the fact that they're, again, moving into this sort of new world. It's not, the vestiges of the old isn't completely gone. Still have some solar power, still have some wind power, still have some stuff that they can maintain. And I think it would be interesting to see if there can be some new industry sort of formed up. Probably more solar-based than, say, oil-based, since that requires a whole extra bit of manpower and resources. But I like the idea of really this show making that move, making the change, and really living in, again, this brand new world. Also, attitude-wise, there seems to be a lot more joy overall. The Walker's less of a large threat than we have. Still not dissipated, but it seems to be, again, as time has moved on, your discoveries of everything's been searched out, your small group of walkers seems to have sort of passed away. We're moving more into the idea of these large roaming herds to become more of a threat. And they just sort of touch on it very briefly in the show, but I kind of like that idea again, as again, changing up the atmosphere. And everybody is so, for the most part, so skilled with dealing with walkers. They typically, in their small numbers, shouldn't really represent a threat. Occasionally, apparently, they do, and we'll get into all of that in a moment. But yeah, again, seeing that kind of atmospheric change, I think, is a good move to make, is really seeing how the world has started to evolve and change and adjust with this large course of time. Now, as the episode opens up, we, of course, have a journey into DC to get technology, old technology, and seeds and stuff. And again, I like this idea that now, because of all of that newer technology has fallen apart, isn't really workable, your vehicles and cars and things like that, that they got to go old school. Love the fact of heading to DC. We get a brief new location. Going for plows, wagons, old technology, stuff that's already there, but also can be used as a template to recreate more, which, again, they don't have access. There's no internet in the post-apocalyptic future. You got to do stuff old school. So we really enjoyed that. Also, the fact of going for heirloom seeds. This is why seeds are so important, man. As a way of replenishing crops, because we're seeing the differences in our communities happen as well. Hillside, always been very agrarian, always been very farm-oriented. They are doing the best in this post-world because they have the resources, they have the knowledge, they have the know-power, and they have the location that really supports what you need to survive, which is growing your own food. Alexandria seems to be kind of in the middle there. It has some stuff, definitely a lot of the plans that Maggie was working on ages ago with the old mayor there, whose name now escapes me. God, I can see your face, and I'm sorry about that. But yeah, so we have some of those plans that have sort of played out. The sanctuary, on the other hand, not doing so well. Why? Because they're a factory building. It's not a place to grow. And this is one of the small frustrations that we have, that I kind of have with the episode, is with this 18-month time jump. Either the saviors should have moved or they should have expanded. Yes, they're in a factory, but there is large swaths of land around them that they should have branched out. But it still seems that they're also really focused on that factory floor. And this is, again, this starts to set up the conflicts that we're going to be seeing going forward as resources become the new real important trade. You can't find anything. Everything has already been raided in the area. So there's no new stuff. You're not finding new cans. You're not finding old grocery stores. None of that stuff is around. It's already been picked clean. Now you really do have to start from the beginning. And the saviors, who had spent so much time just acquiring stuff from the outside world, now facing their own challenges in trying to grow their own. Corn seems to be what they're focusing on, and getting fuel in that manner to run Daryl's bike, mostly, and a few other bikes and such there. But yeah, not really a long-term survival crop. So they're going to definitely need to make some changes. And again, a little frustrated that they haven't already sort of expanded their sphere of influence to try and get some more straight land in order to grow crops. But we got to have conflicts, right? Now, speaking of conflicts, some of the issues I did have with the episode happens to kind of focus around what I thought were somewhat manufactured conflicts or points of tension. One is, of course, the aforementioned sanctuary still trying to just grow food outside of their factory building and not trying to clear away, find new croplands and stuff like that to really establish. That was one little thing. But a few others again, or I guess, like I said, the points of contention throughout this episode. First off, the glass floor in DC. Come on. The minute you saw that, you guys knew that that was going to be a point of danger, right? Especially when we had the walker fall off the upper balcony and sort of impale himself. And you're already hearing the sort of crackling glass sound. All I was thinking was, well, first off, I was like, I don't care how thick that glass is. I wouldn't be walking over it with a whole bunch of walkers underneath it. But knowing at that point that that is going to be a source of conflict, that there is going to be a problem with that. And since we have a group that really, they've been around for a while, most of them all very well experienced, I would have thought probably clearing out that room underneath would have been a big priority. You could just, funnel them out in a small room, small corridors, and stab next one, stab next one, stab next one. I mean, maybe I'm overthinking things, but since they were clearing out everything else that they had around them, that just seemed like such an obvious future problem, especially when they know they're bringing large weights and a giant wagon down the steps. That was going to be some issue there. I was a little concerned, actually, since they were tying all the ropes around them, that if that wagon went through, they were just all going to get sucked down in. But, on the other hand, kind of like rock climbing and stuff, you want that there in case the glass does break, that you maybe don't fall all the way down in there, which is exactly sort of what happened to Ezekiel. So I have to say, thought we were going to lose Ezekiel right there. I was like, did Ezekiel come in as a day player for this? And this is going to be all the sadness for Carol she's going to have to deal with? Luckily, no. I like Ezekiel. I'm glad that he survived that. And we got this nice little kind of compassion moment from Carol. Again, she has opened up. I loved her coming up and giving him that big kiss. She has been through so much. She does deserve happiness. I agree with Daryl on that. But yeah, that point, it's the minute I saw the glass floor, I knew that there was going to be a problem with that was going to be a conflict. So it was kind of a little too obvious. Also, we have the death of Ken. And sure, you always have to show that the world is still dangerous. But this is another one of those situations where, yes, the wagon was stuck. They're trying to pull it out of the mud. They do actually get it out of the mud before the walkers' little mini herd group gathering. What do you call a group? Is it a murder of walkers? Kind of like crows, can we call it that? Was coming up. But of course, we've got them coming around to the side. There's no one there. Ken runs back, specifically against orders from Rick, who said to leave them, had to go and cut the horse loose, and he gets bitten and then kicked in the chest. Ow. And then down. And what was really kind of frustrating with that is obviously the urge was to get away because we have this group of walkers, this murder of walkers coming up from behind. And yet, in order to save Ken to do the quick operations and such like this, we had Rick and company and several other fighters go back to clear out some of the walkers, and they cleared them all out. They were all dead. So they could have potentially dealt with that. I know, dealing with the threat, but also, can't you drag Ken away with that? I don't know. I mean, again, it was one of those where it was, we're setting up a conflict here, we're setting up an issue, and the logic kind of around it sort of fell apart. And not to mention that the reason that we have Ken dying is so that Maggie can have an issue back at Hilltop, where we've recently had an election, yay democracy, and Maggie's been voted as in charge, and the one who fell away was poor old Gregory. And that was the other issue I had with this. Why was he still alive? Why was he even at Hilltop? I thought that he got kicked out. Should he have been sent over to the sanctuary to live with the saviors? And not up at Hilltop. I mean, the guy's been he is always causing problems. So even seeing him around frustrated me because, any good gesture he's doing is just only serving himself, which is exactly how that all played out. He gets mom drunk. I thought he had poisoned the old mom there for a minute. And then what? Takes the alcoholic dad, gets him drunk. I know you're an alcoholic and you don't drink anymore, but here, your kid died. Have some alcohol. And gets him to try and murder Maggie. Just, again, all problematic. Did love Maggie's response to Gregory. What is it? You can't even murder someone right. This is why you're not in charge. You can't even murder someone right. You're too much of a coward to do it yourself. You got to get some guy drunk to do it for you. So, yeah, again, not very happy with the whole Gregory circumstance. And why was he around? So why was he around? So Maggie could do the big final scene. So Maggie could take out Gregory and have the establishment of laws, which was what McGowan was talking with Rick about, which is, again, another part of that evolution that we are seeing within this episode of this new world. Now that we have survived, now that we've beaten back our enemies, now that we're not just fighting to have a new day, but we're actually looking at establishing a world, establishing things for long-term laws and agreements, a charter. The charter constitution issue right there. But yeah, a charter of agreement between communities is this is how we interact, this is what we believe is right, and this is what people do when they're wrong. And so this was Maggie starting that form of punishment, which she would have loved to have done with Negan way back when. But now that she is in charge, she can do that with Gregory. So why is Gregory stuck around the past 18 months? So that he could get hung by Maggie to prove a point. Whereas if, punishment fits the crime, you try to kill someone, or you do kill someone, you yourself will be killed. Execution. Our establishment of laws. And of course, this is also Maggie stepping up into the fore, claiming real leadership from her hilltop position. As that last discussion with Rick is, before it was all we were giving and taking and it was all sharing. Now she's in charge of her community and she's looking to protect her community, looking for its strength. It's not just give away, it has to be a give and take because it's a new world. The other big change that we sort of hit on this episode came out of that discussion between Daryl and Rick, and that is the changes in the groups themselves, with the individual members. Things are no longer the same because the world has changed. Daryl kind of blaming Rick for that, in a way. You know, Rick set up this new world, the vision of Carl and all of that. And Daryl not really finding his place. Doesn't see himself as that leadership position. Certainly doesn't want to be dealing with the saviors and all of their particular issues. The fact that Carol was able to sort of step into that, give herself, help out her buddy Daryl, and I love their little scene between them. Again, not a love relationship romance here, but a love and respect, a camaraderie between them. There's still sort of a Carol Daryl thing I kind of like, but I like the fact that they're still holding on to that, the strength of just the relationship, even from a non-sexual standpoint. But that Carol willing to sort of step up and let Daryl step away, not have to deal with that relationship. Also giving her a chance to step away from Ezekiel for a moment. Give a little breathing space. Does she love Ezekiel? Yes. Would she marry him? Possibly, but she's not in that place right now, and she needs to be sure that she has herself established. So we've got those changes in relationships that are going, certainly between people, but also their position. We're not in the survival bits anymore. It's not a small group versus the rest of the world. Now that they have sort of conquered their area of the world, they've got to figure out how to live long term, which means people aren't doing the same things that they used to. They've got to learn to step into new areas. Daryl may have to learn some leadership or find a different place for him to be, which isn't just out roaming the world. Rick obviously kind of is trying to set up the world. Maggie protecting Hilltop. Carol maybe stepping into more of a leadership role herself now. So the relationships are changing, and that's going to create some conflict that we're going to be seeing in the episodes going forward. All right, just a couple of small things. One, the Walker Scarecrow in the beginning. I kind of like that, I have to say. I mean, yeah, you need someone to scare off the crows, and sort of a walker that's constantly little moving. That's not a bad idea. Except I also sort of have to agree with with Daryl there in taking out said Walker Scarecrow, because especially with the decay going on, you don't want an arm breaking off or two and then a Walker starting to crawl around at night around surprising people who are tending crops. So kind of an interesting idea to scare away crows, but also very deadly and dangerous unto itself. Oh, and speaking of the Scarecrow, one of the gentlemen setting that up was Justin the Savior, played by Zach McGowan, who I love. If you guys have watched any of my reviews, you know how much I love Zach McGowan. Played Vane on Black Sails, was the Superior Anton in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., also did a bit on the 100, so I love seeing him. I was kind of hoping he might be some cool guy, but playing the Savior, especially his comment about getting rid of the Savior graffiti that was on the wall. What am I supposed to do? How am I supposed to do that? The paint's all gone. It's just, I have a feeling he's going to be probably a bit more on the evil troublemaker side. So, love seeing Zach McGowan. Kind of a bummer that he's going to be a troublemaker, most likely. But he is also always fun to watch. Also, love the whole evolution of man chart that was in the museum there, as we see the sort of, ape ancestor into Australopithecus and the caveman into modern human, and then into the zombie, which they killed right there at that moment. That was just, I don't know, it was kind of a perfect little evolution spike. Have to agree with Father Gabriel on that. It's kind of an intelligent design meets evolution. I liked it. And of course, it does look like the Saviors are going to be kind of, at least initially, a little focus of the animosity, as we saw with our older couple there, blaming the Saviors for taking all the food and all the stuff around them. Hilltop does all the work, Saviors just take everything. I hope that's not something that they hang on for too long. I mean, we still have Negan in jail, so I don't know. I'm not looking forward to any kind of resurgence of the Saviors. I'd like them to go a different direction. We also have some other comic book bad guys on the horizon that we can look forward to. So I'm hoping that that's not something that's hit on for too long, because I did appreciate the respect that the Saviors did give Rick for stopping the war and kind of changing things. So I would like to think that there's a larger percentage of that community that appreciates the change, not having the same rule as when Negan was in charge, but obviously they are still a focus of animosity through a lot of the community's members. All right, well, I think that pretty much covers everything. No scene of the week this week. Again, because it really just felt like a lot of setup this episode. There was some interesting moments and stuff. I mean, maybe I lean towards Gregory getting killed as almost the scene of the week, because I'm glad to see him gone. But it was too obvious of a setup for me. Again, all of the conflicts that we had between the glass floor and Ken getting killed and Gregory being there seem to all just be feeding in so we can set up our conflicts that are going on through this season. So nothing super exciting that I really wanted to sort of focus on. We'll save that for hopefully some awesome stuff coming up in the next few weeks. So next week, we'll probably definitely have a scene of the week. But that's going to wrap us up for this week. Really looking forward to the season. Very sad Rick's going to be leaving us. I just hope they send him away in an appropriate manner. Maybe we should start a poll. What do you think Rick's final line's going to be? Is it going to be, Coral? Or is it going to be, keep them all alive, save them? Or is it just going to be a last look at Michonne like, I love you, before being crushed by an army of walkers or however it is they're going to take him out? He's going to go out in a good way. Let me know what you guys think might be Rick's final lines. We'll start up a little bit over the next few episodes, so it'll be fun. Anyway, that's it. Thank you so much for joining me with this review. And of course, if you did enjoy it yourself, please go ahead and hit that like button. Thoughts, ideas, comments, ideas on Rick's finals line, throw those down in the section below. You can always catch me on Twitter and Instagram. I am at Darren Jakes. Please subscribe. Got a whole season coming up here. Plus, we're doing The Gifted and going to be peppering out some reviews of Runaways throughout this fall before season 2 starts on December 21st. So, boom, subscribe button. Don't miss that. And we'll throw up a couple of our latest reviews right here you can check out. So, that's it for me. I'm D, and I'm out of here. Catch you guys next time. Bye-bye.